Um, yeah, thanks, Doug. Dr. DeVilliers.
Oh, you're good.
All right, so we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to share the screen again. And before, give me just a minute. It's getting a little glitchy. There we go. There we go. Before we jump into new content today, I just want to make sure that I take time to address a question, which was a very good question that I received during the week. I sent my reply as an announcement, and I think I also may have done a video as well, an email as well, but just in case, I wanted to clarify the videos, Dr. Oj's videos that walk you through the teaching cycle with pre-assessment are when we used to submit them all in different watermark links. So that is why it might be a touch, that part of the video might be a little bit confusing, but it is not all in little links. So it will be submitted all in one watermark link. All of that will be submitted in one watermark link. And that link is actually already available in this module, module 2. And just for the clarification's sake, I wanted to make sure that you knew the teaching cycle with pre-assessment is also called stage 2, task 1, 2, and 3. So in the videos and sometimes even in the samples, they might be labeled different things, but I wanted you to know those are the same assignments. They're the same tasks. I didn't want you to get confused about that. And also, once again, about the watermark link. So you will only see the one watermark link. Stage 2, task 1, 2, and 3 will all be submitted in one link like that. Again, don't hesitate to reach out if you have other questions. I will be going over a little bit more about the teaching cycle with pre-assessment. So if it's okay with everybody, I would just kind of prefer to hold those questions. Let's just pin them until we're at that part of the module. And that way we could kind of all look at those questions and answers together. I was really excited to get to know more about you through the discussion board. If you haven't had time to do the discussion board yet this week from last time, please go pick it up. You are in class with some really cool people. And that's always kind of motivating and cool to know that you're learning with like-minded, really high-achieving people, and you guys are. So that's super cool. Today, what we're going to do, I just want to take a minute to refer to our class calendar. We are in module 2, and the focus today is the science of reading, and we're going to be focusing on the second part, or tasks 2 and 3 of the teaching cycle with pre-assessment. So this week, your tasks are discussion board 2, which is geared specifically to the science of reading. The teaching cycle with pre-assessment counts as 1 hour of your field experience, and then 1 hour of observation and field experience, in addition to the hour you'll be doing with your pre-assessment. And you can choose to do that either through the curated videos or through a mentor in the field. Either way is totally fine there. And you can go back to module 1. If you didn't get that, I've created a little video about that. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the science of reading today. We're going to hit some of the hot spots. And the reason I really want to make sure we hit this is the rest of the course is built around your understanding of what happens today, the science of reading today. So we are going to establish our objectives. First of all, we're going to examine the science of reading with a special, oh, wait, sorry, it won't speaker view there. This is what I want. There we go. We want to examine the science of reading with special attention to Scarborough's reading rope and the simple view of literacy. So those are the two big concepts you're going to get out of today's material. We're going to consider how appropriate support of all of the strands of the reading rope can support students' literacy proficiency, and then their content outcomes, what they're actually learning in your courses. So our essential questions are, what role can I play in supporting students' competencies in building their strands of the reading rope, and then what teacher moves can I make in building these competencies. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So Scarborough's reading rope, or the science of reading rather, was covering up my list there. This is research that details how students learn how to read and how to address the challenges related to reading and writing. And of course, we know that those challenges that they encounter with reading and writing show up in the other forms of literacy: speaking, listening, visualizing, and of course, that critical thinking are all impacted by those reading and writing components. The majority of middle and high school teachers are not trained on teaching children how to read and are not equipped to help struggling readers. And that is also true for our K-12 certification areas, such as music, art, and H&HP. Those areas we don't really receive, up to this point, we have not really received explicit instruction. Things have changed though. And last module, we talked about some of the data, some of the really staggering and very frightening statistics that have made literacy a more prominent part of our educational outcomes and our training. So content area texts at the middle and high school level are increasingly complex, and students struggle to extract meaning. So it's essential for secondary contents and K-12 content areas to become better equipped at meeting those needs. So the science of reading is a vast interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. So I want you to just remember and think about these three things. For something to be considered scientifically based research, we have three major criteria, which we won't go into all of the details here, but it has to be experimental or quasi-experimental. So if you think back to your statistics courses and your research courses, what we're talking about here is it has to have some sort of experimental or quasi-experimental measurement base to it. It has to have a detailed description of how study methods to allow for replication or refinement of the findings. So basically what this means is the studies should have been done several times in different regions, different countries even, and different disciplines. And then, of course, it must go before peer review. And so that's what we're talking about. And that's how it actually gets the name science of reading. So when we think about the science of reading, some things that we want to consider is that this particular bank of research has been conducted over 5 decades. And it actually started a little bit before that, but it wasn't explicitly studied. But the last 5 decades, it's been across the world, multiple languages, multiple countries, and multiple demographics have been studied. It's culminated in this preponderance of evidence that informs how proficient reading and writing develop, why some learners have more difficulties than others, and how we can most effectively assess and teach and also improve student outcomes through prevention and intervention of these literacy strategies. So look at some of the fields that we've tapped into when we're talking about the science of reading: cognitive psychology, communication sciences, developmental psychology, education implementation science, neuroscience, linguistics. So these are just a few, but and what's really cool about the research is it all echoes, the findings echo one another, and they all corroborate one another. So even though they were in different fields, maybe studying different pieces of this, all of them lead to the same body of research. It is not, hear me loudly, hear me clearly, because as it grows, we love to start tacking names on things and putting them in boxes, and we love it. That's what we love to do, but it is not an ideology or a philosophy. It's not a fad, although it is relatively new to many of us in education. It's not a trend. And this is not some sort of pendulum swing. It's based on the science of how people really learn to read. It is not a political agenda, although you will see it taken up as a political agenda. It's not going to be a one size fits all magic wand kind of approach, but it is truly something that depends on our understanding of how learners learn and how they learn to read. And that supports everything that we're trying to do in teaching our content. So we're going to watch this really brief video, and it is based on a very simple equation called the simple view of reading. So super short video, but it'll help you understand it.
When we think about the essential skills children need to build their reading brain, Goff and Tunmer's model, known as the simple view of reading, is quite helpful. In this model, the critical sub-skills of reading are simplified to their essential categories, decoding and language comprehension, and framed as a multiplication equation, with reading comprehension as the product, or goal, on the right side of the equation. The idea is this: strong reading comprehension results only when both decoding and language comprehension are strong. To illustrate this idea, let's assign values of 0 for weak and 1 for strong. If decoding is weak and assigned a value of 0, and language comprehension is strong, a value of 1, reading comprehension is weak because 0 multiplied by 1 is 0. Conversely, if language comprehension is weak but decoding is strong, reading comprehension still suffers. 1 times 0 is 0.
So to avoid freezing up too much anymore, which I'm not really positive what's going on, but I think you get the gist of the reading, the simple view of reading. If you look at the top, I put the equation, and we're going to look at Scarborough's reading rope just a moment in just a minute so that you can see how it works. Decoding is the ability to apply sound symbol relationships to read words. And language comprehension is the ability to understand spoken language. So if a student doesn't have essentially a 1 in both of those categories, then their reading comprehension can't actually be skilled or be considered proficient. So when we consider that, when we think about that in the sense of Scarborough's reading rope, which let me get a, ooh, oh, no. Don't want to play this again. So when we think about Scarborough's reading rope, and for the sake of time and also the freezing on my side, there is a little video I recommend you watch again, but I'm going to actually show you this particular chart, this infographic rather. This is the science of reading. This is Scarborough's reading rope with the science of reading meshed in. If you look on the far left-hand side, here is the simple view of reading. So decoding is associated with, of course, decoding itself, phonological awareness, and sight word recognition. So these are typically associated with beginning readers in elementary school, whereas language comprehension is associated with vocabulary, background knowledge, language structure, literacy knowledge, and verbal reasoning. So that's why it's considered a rope, is these strands within the rope have to be both working together so that our students can actually comprehend what they're reading. If their decoding skills are weak, so this means like they don't really know and understand how to break down words or the meaning of words, then even if they have strong verbal skills, and that we often will consider those students that we're like, wow, they're very, very bright, but they don't seem to be performing very well, they may not have very good decoding skills, and vice versa. They may have excellent decoding, sight word recognition, but they really are struggling with some of the literacy knowledge and verbal reasoning, then they won't proceed that way either. So these actually go hand in hand. This is a flipped model of it, which we're going to look at again, but it just breaks down a little bit more what each one of those strands are. Notice we are not going to spend very much time in this class on the lower strands, or what we call the decoding strands. We're going to focus on those upper strands, how to build vocabulary, how to build in language structures, background knowledge. That's what we are going to focus on. Just for your knowledge, these are the 3 lower strands. So phonological awareness is a skill set that includes identifying and manipulating units of oral language. So it's words and syllables. Phonological awareness is like, if you think about our pre-K students, they'll have like a letter of the week, and it'll be like, okay, this week we're going to study the b, b, b sound, and they do that. That's phonological awareness. Decoding is the ability to apply the knowledge of sound letter relationships to correctly pronounce. So I want you to look at this statistic. In 2019, only 35% of 4th graders were at or above proficient level in reading assessment. And a big part of that is they didn't have the necessary decoding skills. Sight recognition is very important. And literate adults have a sight word memory of 30 to 70,000 words. Starting in 3rd grade, it's estimated that skilled orthographic mappers anchor 10 to 15 new words a day into their word memories. Our secondary students, I want you to process this. So our students in middle and high school, it's roughly 10 to 13,000 new words per school year. So when we think about that, that's a lot of content that we're shoving at them. And we want to make sure we give them the proper support. So essentially, a skilled reader is one who is able to strategically move the strands of that rope and make sure that they're closely intertwined, metaphorically speaking. The more fluent they become in each strand, and the more they are able to manipulate those strands as needed, the more skilled they are to recognize words and to comprehend challenging text. And of course, that's our goal. So the implications for us is that until our students are skilled readers, they're not able to really read and comprehend our challenging, complex text. And that includes those that are more visual. So for example, if you think about many of our music students, they're very skilled when it comes to performance. But when it comes to theory, that's where we see some of the breakdown with our students. When we actually go back and show them a piece of sheet music, it's why some of the sight reading skills are so low. Music has its own language, and we have to break that language down and show them how to teach it. And of course, that's going to be the same for science. Have any of you looked at a science ACT yet? It's not discrete science. It's a reading test. It is a reading application test. Can you break down infographics? Can you break down data? And so much of our content is actually teaching them how to make sense and meaning of a lot of the different types of text that are present in our content areas. So here are just a few examples. If you could just take a minute and browse these, but these are some examples of things that we can do, small moves that we can make in our content areas. And this gives you just a little taste of what we're going to be doing in each module. We'll just be focusing on each strand and on small teacher moves that you can make to support learners at every level. So your discussion board this week is for you to consider what parts of Scarborough's reading rote does your content most directly focus on. Some of you might be really vocabulary heavy, like super vocabulary heavy. If you're in a science class, for example, or maybe perhaps even a social studies class, that's very vocab heavy. Whereas if you get to perhaps some of the English and the more abstract concepts, that might be a little bit more of the verbal reasoning, a little bit more of the literacy structures. So I want you to think about what strands of Scarborough's reading rote do you think your students need the most support with? So this is just across the board. So far in your experience, what do you think they're needing the most help with? And there's really no wrong or right here. I'm just trying to get you to reflect on the different strands before we jump into them. And then lastly, what are some of the implications for secondary and K-12 teachers when we consider how to support students in the reading rote? And to help you with this discussion board, there is a little resource, 30 Science of Reading resources. So I highly recommend that. Definitely flip back to our presentation, but this is a great resource, kind of give you some ideas. Here's your discussion board. Here is your observation. It's the exact same that I covered in module 1. And remember, this week, please focus on getting 1 within your teaching cycle with pre-assessment. You're counting that, it's embedded. And then that second one would actually be from your curated videos or in the field. I'm going to stop and show you the teaching cycle with pre-assessment, which is right here. And this week, you're going to be focusing on tasks 2 and 3, which are the final tasks. There are 2 videos here. They are much too long for us to go into detail. But essentially what you want to be noting about the task 2 and about task 3 is, sorry, I'm freezing again. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm not really sure what's going on. Task 2 is about the relevance and the rationale. And then task 3, you are either going to pick, if you are a math teacher, you would be picking the math one. And if you are not a math teacher, everything else will be using the reading diversity tool. And what these 2 tools actually do is they are going to get you to examine your lesson plan, and your text. And you're going to be looking for cultural representation. You're going to be looking for text complexity, like making sure that the text is really rigorous enough for what we want our students to do. And that pretty much takes care of your tasks for this week. I put samples. So one more thing to show you. So my social studies and my English, I loaded a bunch of social studies and English samples for you. So those are there. They're present, broken down for you. I did have one other question about, someone said, we asked this last year, but then there was a clarifying question. Can I use the one that I created in my assessment course that I did in 7A? Yes, you are allowed to. That's actually kind of why you're doing this class second, is because you should have already kind of done that one. So yes, those are aligned. I'm going to stop speaking and I'm going to let you ask any questions that you would want to, because for our remaining 20 minutes, I want to answer any questions you may have had about module 1 or any that you may have about anything to do with teaching cycle, observation, anything. I'll be quiet. Wait time. Nothing? No questions today? Do you want to look at any samples or anything? Anybody? I know if y'all are like me, I kind of like to dig in it by myself and then sometimes circle back in case I have a question, which is totally fine. And we don't actually have enough time to like fully dive into it. But oh, there was one other question though. The due date. It's not until Monday 10:30. Not until Monday 10:30. So it's not due this week. It's actually not due until the end of the month, which would give you an additional, we would be able to actually meet again next Tuesday, just in case you have some additional questions before you have to turn it in. You'd be able to kind of clear anything up there. So, okay. One tip, I told somebody this, but I want to make sure I reiterate it. I highly recommend that you do not use really, really long pretests. 10 items at most, because you have to do an item analysis for them. And if you do like a 40 question pretest, it's going to take you it's very time consuming. So I'm saying max 10 items. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to stick around, Dr. DeVilliers, stick around. And if any of you want to stick around to just dig into these with me, I don't mind. I'm here. If not, y'all have a wonderful week. Please don't hesitate to reach out and email me. I will load this video. And as we need any clarifying questions through the week, I will make sure to send an email so that everybody is getting the same clarifying information. Y'all have a great week. Enjoy the sunshine. It's so nice and beautiful. Go do some homework outside.
And don't forget Thursday, LCB, not Brentwood.
Ooh, yes.
I wanted to actually tell y'all I might not be able to make it to that Thursday one because my high school is doing a parade in that. So if I can't make it, is that okay? Okay.
It's your loss, Justin. What can I say?
I know.
I mean, it's going to be an amazing Thursday.
Yeah, I know. It will.
But
Hey,
I'll
are y'all
I'll share
homecoming?
with
Y'all
you.
are homecoming, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. My neighborhood it's technically in Westlake,
Yeah.
but it's right on the border of Westlake, Moss Bluff. We have gotten rolled. And we get all of it. All of it.
Some of my students are like, Mr. Carpenter, where do you live? I'm like, somewhere in Lake Charles. I'm not telling you where.
I'm not telling you where. No.
I was like, I'm not telling you where.
No, don't do
I
that.
know.
But yeah,
Well,
Justin, if you'll remind me after Thursday, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the links to the things that we talk about.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to piggyback